Hey, this is Berto from Sling Paint Gaming, guys. Welcome back. And actually, today we're going to be talking about a paint job I just did of the Millennium Falcon. Actually, I'm going to rephrase that. It's not a Millennium Falcon. It's actually the YT class 1300. It's a Star Wars X-Wing miniatures game from by Fantasy Flight Games. And basically, I did a complete repaint. Yeah. And I had some fun with this. This is actually pretty good. Stay tuned. Take a look. All right, so kind of basically I wanted to show you. This is an actual traditional Millennium Falcon, right? It's got the paint scheme from the Millennium Falcon, and I just wanted to have some fun. I wanted to have some fun playing with some paints and getting to some different paint jobs. So I actually did this ship. Let me kind of showcase it. Pretty cool. And basically what I did was, it's very simple kind of what I did. I basically took I had two Millennium Falcons or two YT-1300 class ships, and I just painted one of them. And the color schemes, I'll tell you why it's a little bit pinkish. Has something to do with my daughter. She liked it. Basically, what I did was I took a base coat. I didn't use an airbrush. I just grabbed some regular Formula P3 white primer. This actually works pretty good. Probably the airbrush would be a little bit thinner on laying the paint on, a little bit cleaner. But this just worked fine. I mean, it worked fine for me. I like it. It was relatively inexpensive. I picked it up at my local hobby shop. So what I did was, as far as I spray painted this whole thing white, and I'm not going to go into spray painting and teaching spray painting right now. I just want to kind of show you what I did on this ship. And basically, I just had some fun. And a lot of it was, I took the white primer, and what I first did was the actual pinkish areas. It was actually not supposed to be pink. It was kind of like more of a crimson red. And I basically used the Citadel Carroburg Crimson. And what I did was I just started painting it. And also my daughter came by and she's like, "Daddy, that looks so pretty. I love the ship." And it stuck that color. So I didn't want to do another layer of it to bring up a little more crimson reddish. And I just stuck with it. And it worked. And plus having a base coat of white, it makes it look a little bit pinkish. But I'm okay with that. Real men wear pink. That's what they say. So I'm okay with it. I like it. And then what I did was everything else, I basically took Null Oil, also from Citadel. I kind of like just went Citadel crazy on this paint job. This is like Liquid Expert in a bottle. I mean, honestly, you can't really mess this up. If you mess this up, you could take a little bit off by adding some water on a brush and just kind of soaking it up, some of it. So I mean, it's really easy, and I kind of did that effect. And then when you go over other areas, like I did this area, and I also did this area darker. Basically, what I did was just added another coat of that Null Oil. And then what I did was, you could see like in certain areas there's a little yellow. I just took a fine brush and just really painted really softly, and it was basically the Cassandra yellow from also Citadel. Some of the red areas, the little red parts on the boxes inside the exposed parts of the ship, it was actually the Evil Sun Scarlet, and that's just a layer paint. So this is actually a lot of it differently than the Null Oil and these three jars of paint that I showed you first originally, because these are like washes almost. And then what I also did was, you could see all the copper piping on there, anything that had a line on it. You can see the original one here, right? All those lines and stuff. I mean, I wanted to add some flair to it and kind of like almost like a steampunk-ish feel to it. So I basically found some hashut, whatever you want to call that, copper, and basically took a very, very fine brush. And the brush I had was actually from, I picked this up also at the hobby shop, the Army Painter Wargamer Detail range. It was like, you can see the price, $5. Right at the hobby shop. This thing, here's the product code. This is actually a very fine brush when you put some paint on it, and you're just touching those lines, and you just kind of follow it and make sure you don't have I'm actually thinking about getting one of those glasses so I can see in a microphone so I can kind of look closer. As far as, also, you can kind of see like a rusting, like a little brown in certain areas, kind of really make it a little bit rustic. And you can see that I just slapped on. I didn't slap on everywhere, just on different parts of the ship. That was actually the famous Agrax Earthshade from Citadel. I mean, this stuff's awesome as well. It's also like Liquid Expert, just like the Null Oil. And again, I just had fun with it. I wasn't going for perfection. I just wanted to have fun with it. The engines, I mean, you can see on the original model, it doesn't, like, they don't paint the engines. I don't know why any of the ships, I don't think any of the ships actually have the engines painted from Fantasy Flight. I really wish they did. I understand maybe why they want, and if people want to paint the engines afterwards, they always can do that. But to me, you're flying in the game. You're actually, you're flying. So let's paint the engines. So I had some fun with that. That actually is the Lothran Blue from Citadel. That actually worked out very well. This Lothran stuff, I mean, this is a layer paint. It's not a wash, so it goes on pretty thick. And I just kind of did the back of the engine. And then inside of it, this is actually Praxi White. This is actually a dry paint. So if you don't know how to use dry paints, you can definitely look it up. Maybe I'll do a video on this. Dry paints are very different than washes and layered paints, because they basically, you have basically a special brush for dries, and it's basically like a firm, stubborn brush. And I'm going to show you. This is actually by Citadel. This is actually the medium dry brush. And you can see, I still got some paint on it. You can see it's very different than compared to your traditional paintbrush. It's very stubborn. It's supposed to be like, it's for dry brushing. And what it is you take some of the paint out of it and you put it on a paper towel and you try to get as little as paint as possible on the brush. And then basically it's highlights. And that's what I kind of did with the engine. Just dabbed a little bit in highlights. I also pulled some highlights up here, just kind of basically just brushed it. And you can see it highlighted white just ever so slightly. I also did the lights. I kind of went a little heavy on the lights because it looks like it's flying with the lights on. I love that look when the Millennium Falcon's doing that. I also brushed some areas here like it got hit with something, just to point out like it got scratched, maybe like done down to the metal, like you scratch a car, like a red car, and you see the silver underneath it. Same effect. Also the big scar underneath that, I did that too as well, and just other areas, I just kind of highlighted the white, very slow. I mean, and the best part about it is you don't have to be perfect with this. That's the best part about this. You can just actually have some fun and paint. Right? I mean, it's really not difficult. The biggest thing is when you're layering this paint, take your time on the primer, coat, do your first thing where it's coated nice. You don't want to spray out the ship. You want to start the spray over here, kind of go across, and keep turning the ship and get every angle. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, I'm actually painting one of the Hounds, and you can kind of see, I was playing, before I painted this, I was using permanent marker to make my ships different. And you can kind of see through the primer just a little bit where the marker came through. But that's okay, because I'm going to layer that. I'm actually going to probably paint these wings red, and I'll show that's another episode for another day. But again, I just had some fun, and you can kind of see the copper that I went through. I painted all the different copper, all the different piping, the internals, and again, I just had some fun with it. The window, okay, this was actually fun to do. It's probably a new technique. Let me rephrase it. I don't know if it's a new technique. I don't know if somebody had there invented, but I was looking at that, and I was watching a video on adding gloss to the paints, and I found this stuff at my hobby shop. All right, it's also by it's a Formula P3, and this is actually a mixing medium, not a medium to thin out your paint. Okay, this is actually a mixing medium, and what this does is it adds gloss, okay, to whatever paint that you're doing. So if you take if you have a little mixing, like if you're using a plastic plate or whatever you're using to mix your paint, right? You take what I did to make that actual the cockpit, and you can see kind of a little semi-gloss to it, maybe an eggshell, right? But it just stands out. All I did was I took Null Oil, right? I just dabbed my brush heavy into Null Oil, put it on the plate, and I basically took like 2 or 3 drops of this and mixed it in. And you can start seeing it comes up like this hazy, whitish, filmy, and dark because it's a Null Oil. And I basically, all I did was I took my brush, dabbed it in there, and just how liquids work, especially when they work up with within side areas that have sides. I just kind of dabbed it in there, and I laid it really thick so it stayed thick. And I did all the windows like that, and I let it dry. And you can kind of see, because the way it dried, it almost added like a concave highlights here and there view automatically, and it stands out differently. I also did the top. You really can't see. It's underneath the turret there. But I did the top the same way. I mean, I just literally got my brush really soaking wet and just dabbed it in there. And if it was too much, I took some paint off and just, usually when you put the paintbrush back on, it'll suck the paint right back up. I didn't do the bottom because the actual connector where it goes on the base actually was covering the window, so I didn't have to really do the bottom. But it just gave me a little different look and feel. And I think it just worked out pretty well. It's dark, and you can see the difference between the actual ship and the windows. And I think, again, I had some fun with this. But anyway, this was, again, a YT-1300 class thing. I'm going to paint a sister ship to this, a YT-2400 freighter. I'm actually going to paint that in a matching color scheme. We're going to stay tuned. We're going to paint that next. So definitely come back to the videos and see if you see. You can definitely check that out. It'll probably be my next video. Again, this is Berto from Sling Paint Gaming. If you guys have any questions, ask them below in the comments. I would love to answer them. If you need to know what type of paints I have or whatever the case would be, again, ask. If you like the video, like it. Please share the video as well. And again, thanks everybody. Have some fun gaming.